Hi, Georgina.
Hi, Nadia. How are you?
Good. RJ said he couldn't log in, so I'm not sure what's going
Yeah.
on.
I saw the message. Not sure either.
Yeah,
So he needs to check your email and go back on and try again.
because you went from the Outlook invitation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think all the speakers should be fine, hopefully.
hopefully. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
And you?
Not too bad, thanks. Feeling much better.
Good.
So,
That's positive.
spring helps. We've got nice weather over here, so that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feel a little bit better.
And consistency in weather too, right?
Yes, because it goes up and down. It's like
Yeah.
you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Oh, there
Hi,
he is.
RJ. What happened?
I was trying to come through the ticket that the Everbright generated,
Yeah.
as
Oh.
opposed to coming in through the Zoom. And
Mm.
it was telling me that, do you want to purchase another ticket? Do you want to purchase another? Wait a minute, I've purchased 4 already. Come on.
Oh,
So I guess, did we send out the Zoom link to those individuals that need to be on here?
Zeta said she did because she was in charge of the Eventbrite and setting
Satan is
that up.
saying that he can't get in either.
What?
Sadia said, I cannot get on either. Wait until time and try again. Send her the same thing that you sent me.
I did. I replied to all.
Okay, all right. Then she should be able to get on.
All of the presenters have my Outlook link
Right.
and so they should be fine at the very least, but I think we should just get Zeta to resend it to the participants then because obviously
Okay,
there's a
yeah.
problem. Zeta? Do you know what's going on with the Eventbrite?
Yes, I got all their emails and I sent them and told them to log in at 6. And then I went to Eventbrite and I changed it from 6:30 to 6. So if they just go
Ooh.
back to their and resent the Eventbrite ticket.
Okay.
So right now it's changed on the Eventbrite ticket, and I just sent everyone with that Eventbrite link.
Good.
And yeah, and
So
then
they should.
and I go back to Eventbrite and there's a little button you push that says to remind them of the event. So I just keep pushing that. So I pushed that before I joined in.
Okay, so did you go through Eventbrite or did you go through Outlook?
Eventbrite.
Okay.
And I sent them an email again to their private emails because I have their emails, the ones that they registered in. Yeah.
Okay.
And I could send them right now again too because they're on my email, so it doesn't take time.
It doesn't matter. We don't want to over inundate them, but yeah, whatever you think is necessary. I know these things happen with we're working in 3 time zones, but yeah, just to make sure they have a platform. I don't know, RJ, can you message Eugenia?
Yeah.
Thanks.
If she copies, I got in through copy and paste. I had to copy the link and then paste it on Google and then got in through there.
Okay, so maybe tell them to do that so they don't get frustrated, but yeah, Scott isn't available because he's not feeling well. He sent me an email. If we have, what do we have? We have 10 minutes left, so there's still time for people to log in and get themselves sorted. So it will be Kelly, RJ, Eugenia, and Jared. I'm sure Jared will be on time as well.
Mm.
He strikes me, hey, Georgina, as that type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if we have less of the presenters, let's have a conversation regardless. I'll move through the questions as a moderator and then feel free based on what we've researched and what we know to just talk about it. And then maybe what I might do is show the website in more detail.
Mm.
And that gives us a bit of time there.
Okay.
And Tom was supposed to be here as well, so I'm not sure. Did he reply to you, Seda?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Was anyone able to attend the Walden transfer conversation with alumni, with the buyers?
I couldn't.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Uh,
I wonder how that went.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
curious as well. It seems like it's quite an intensive process, so.
I would imagine.
Mhm.
Oh, I was happy. I thought I picked up 3 more people. It turned out RJ, you're the one that
well, I'm the
I
one
was
that
happy. I was like, oh, I have 15 tickets.
I'm the one that signed on 3 times. Huh?
It turned out RJ signed on 3 times. So I don't
Yeah, I
mind.
did. I was saying, wait a minute, something is wrong here. What's going on?
My hopes are up. I was like, I met it.
But you should get several more because I was at the VA on Friday, and I talked with my physician and my PA and my therapist, and I gave them the information and asked them whether or not they were interested in coming on, hearing what we have to say about how we're going to be targeting veterans. Hold on. And they indicated yes. So I sent them the link. So hopefully
Okay.
they'll come on.
Perfect. I have to deal with my dog. He just pushed the door open. One second.
Oh, he did?
Daniel, get down. Go. Billy Bob.
Mine is sitting right down here beside me. Every time I get ready to get on the Zoom, he wants to a part of the action.
No, one time on my computer, mine just sits down. He knows it's going to be a while, so he just sits.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. They're both boys, so they like to play and scrap. So it's not the best to have it in my office. RJ, what type of dog do you have?
I have a Chattahoochee.
Is it a hound?
It's not a hound. It's a cross between a Dalmatian and a pit bull.
Oh,
Damn.
wow.
Oh.
So
That's
Never heard
interesting. Does it have a shorter, like it
That's
takes?
yeah,
Yeah.
it has a shorter snout. Look just like a. He more favors a. What did I say?
A pit bull?
A pit bull in the face, but he's black and white, spotted.
Oh, Oh,
Hmm.
like a Dalmatian.
that's cute. Dalmatians are very high energy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and he is also, my goodness, and he likes to lick on everything. My sofa, the carpet, and I don't know, when they lick on leather, it kind of fades it out. And so
Mm.
my sofa has a big spot in it. I'm saying, wait a minute, what is going on here? What's happening here? And so I decided to give the sofa and the love chair and the other chair to his mama. I said, hey, look, this is your dog. I'm keeping it, but you don't licked on my furniture. You can have this. She's the one. She's the one in medical school. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Oh.
That's funny.
Oh, someone came.
Yeah, Tom is here. Hi, Tom. So Seda rectified the timing of the invite. So hopefully that gets to everyone in advance. Thank you for catching that. I didn't look because I just left it up to her. But hopefully we can do that. If not, we'll send an email with the presentation to everybody.
Yeah.
And the other thing we're going to do is, depending on the presenters, we'll show the website as well.
Got it.
Hi, Tom.
Hello, hello. How's everyone?
Hi.
Hope everybody's doing well. Good
Yeah.
to see everybody.
Tom, were you able to engage with I wasn't able to make it to the alumni engagement for the sale of Walden. Did you participate in any of those sessions?
I did not.
Yeah.
Mm.
No. No, we're supposed to get some information later this week. A lot of it had to do with the whole site visit for Higher Learning Commission that was happening last
Mhm.
Thursday and Friday.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know much more than that right now.
Okay.
And so who are the prospective buyers of Walden? You said it's
It's a large conglomerate similar to Laureate by the name of Atellum.
Okay.
Yeah, very large consortium of many universities all around the world.
I think they used to be, someone said they used to be DeVry.
Oh,
They acquired DeVry.
Okay, they acquired DeVry. Okay.
Mhm.
interesting.
Mm.
Yeah,
So do they still have DeVry?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know much about them.
Okay. We'll be in some good company with them.
I don't know.
So we have a couple minutes. RJ, did you hear from Eugenia?
No, I sent her a message.
Okay, no worries. And I do know that Kelly RSVP'd yes, and Jared RSVP'd yes. Georgina, do you think it's worth emailing him?
Who, Jared?
Yeah,
I could do,
okay, thank you.
and tell him, yeah, we're on in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Right, I'll just send him a text message.
yeah, thank you. And Scott is not well, so he is not going to be here.
Oh,
So maybe what I will do is share our site first, and then we'll go from there. Hi,
Yeah.
Kelly.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. There are other people that are late today too. It seems like that type of day.
mhm.
So you did get the questions, Kelly?
Yeah, those are the ones you sent out on the 24th.
Yeah.
Right? Yep,
Yeah.
got 'em. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we're missing 2 panel members, so we're just waiting for them. we might shift things and just introduce the site that we've created and talk about that a little bit, and then move into the Q&A.
Okay, I shot him a message. Hopefully he's just getting settled somewhere.
Did you hear from Danae?
No, I haven't heard from her for a while.
Okay. I was in touch with her last week, but I didn't check in with her about today. So
Yeah, that's okay. I know she's busy trying to finish her PhD, so. We'll just wait a couple more minutes.
Mhm.
And then Seda, what did you say the registration was? It wasn't too big this time, but
Yeah, it was, I think 12 right now.
okay.
Yeah. Oh,
So Kelly, sometimes what our audience does is they watch the recording. So we usually do send that out. And then we make sure that there's a follow-up through the Fulbright portal. So we're going to get started, even with panel members coming in. And then we'll just talk about our website and our intentions, and then start with RJ and Kelly with introductions, and then go from there if we see others logging in.
Okay.
So thank you all for coming this afternoon or evening, depending on your time zone. We are here to talk about the initiative that we've engaged in today as the Walden Virtual Fulbright Board. And we are hoping this year to push out a site as well as a series of engagement points to support veterans who are transitioning to civilian life in the wellness space. And so our hope is to provide a portal and a pipeline for high-level tier 1 and tier 2 interventions, as well as in Canada and the United States, as well as supports and mentorship and links to other organizations with regards to joblessness, homelessness, and the like. And so what we've done thus far is we've created a site. We're going to publish that as soon as we finish curating the resources. But what we'd like to do is just share with you what we have so far. And so in accompaniment with this site, we're going to engage in a full social media campaign so that we ensure that there's traffic around the site itself, because we do know, as many of the speakers said last time, there's a lot of resources out there. The challenge is that people are unaware of where said resources are. And so our hope is to centralize that within a site and put links, strategies, YouTube videos, so on and so forth on the site, and hope that that will get some traffic to support individuals, whether it be through VA resources or those that were created from our faculty in social work, as well as psychology and other members' contributions. And so as you can see, our site is going to be very I guess, specific, so that there's not a lot of user, I guess, redundancy, if you will. And so we talk a little bit about the wellness program, our intentions around providing supports for high functioning individuals in the transitioning outside of veterans engagement, And so what we've done here on the site is we've talked about our mission and our vision around wellness and supports to provide a pipeline for information and knowledge gathering, as well as strategic partnerships in Canada and the United States. And so what we will have and do have are a series of Tier 1 wellness activities, daily interventions, goal setting, and so on for individuals that are trying to keep abreast of their wellness elements, as well as detailed supports around self-compassion and the importance of engaging in self-compassion to keep highly functioning and to keep in that wellness sphere. We also have a mindfulness booklet that supports interventions for anxiety and just centralizing understanding of what wellness and mindfulness are. And so that will be linked to the site in order for individuals to engage in their own personal journey. So much of this will be incumbent on individuals to download or to take a look at and then engage within the resources or the partnerships. And we also have a roadmap. This is one of the things when we did our own auditing that we thought was missing is help in the day-to-day for individuals and the ability for them to map their interventions. And so we've created a very quick approach to personal goals, an inventory of daily sleep, wellness practices, so on and so forth. And hopefully that will again support that Tier 1 approach. We also want to ensure that this is holistic, and this is again what came out of our committee work and the working committee at Walden is that it's the mind, body, and spirit. So that is to say that individuals will have the opportunity to engage with resources or individuals, mentors, and so on that will help them through their holistic journey around wellness. And we have links to workplace readiness, as well as job or homelessness, joblessness, etc. And so we will have roundtables and other supports for mentoring for individuals that are trying to get traction in this area. And what we also want to do is ensure that our partners are visible. And so what we have so far is the Warrior Alliance, Respect Canada, who has a fulsome database of supports. And thank you, Kelly, for this engagement piece. And they are launching their database in the next 6 months is what I've been told. And so that will be our central focal point for Canadian supports. And then we have, and sorry, RJ, we didn't have time to change this, but we do have the Wounded Warrior Project. We have the wrong wording under Florida Coalition for the supports for veteran homelessness. And we certainly have other engaging parties as we formalize and continue to formalize our partnerships. So that is our site that we will be launching in April with the links and visibility stream through a social media campaign. And so hopefully we can get all of you to engage your networks in that and we can move this forward. So having said that, we just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page with regards to what our initiative has borne fruit out of. So we'll start out with introductions, and Kelly, we'll start with you. You can share your representation, the country you're from, your area of focus, and then RJ will go to you.
Great, thanks. Very good to be with you guys again. My name's Kelly Schwartz. I'm at the University of Calgary in Canada, and I'm an associate professor in the Workland School of Education. And my disciplinary specialty is in school and applied child psychology. So I certainly come from the developmental kind of family systems lens and focus on this. And and that certainly is represented in my research, which is very much looking at the impact of operational stress injuries on family functioning, and particularly spouses and partners, and then also children, school age and youth age children within those families. And so I'm part of a couple projects related to military families right now, but we've also stretched out to look at first responder families as well. So, and in particular, police, fire, and paramedics. So I'm seeing lots of crossovers, but also some interesting uniquenesses within each of those population groups. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for taking the time. I think it's wonderful that we have your breadth of experience and your voice in this panel. And I'm sure you'll continue to share with us your perspectives as we go through the series of questions.
For sure.
RJ, do you mind introducing yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Dr. Johnson, Dr. Arlo Wayne Johnson. I'm a 35-year veteran, combat decorated. I served active duty in Gulf War I, of which I was a first responder to the Iraqi missile that hit Khobar and Dhahran that killed 28 soldiers. And so my dedication to veterans goes way deep. I come from a family of military, uncle, great uncle, cousins, etc. I'm also the CEO and the founder and president of the Florida Coalition to Prevent Veterans Homelessness. Again, just an illustration as to how closely and deep the military family runs in my blood. I have a JD in law and an LLM in international taxation, and so education again is one of my fortes. But I'm very happy to join this team, and I'm very happy of the mission that we've carved out for ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, RJ. And I think both of your perspectives, one being that of a serving member of the military, as well as longstanding work you've done, RJ, in education and development, and Dr. Schwartz, your work with regards to research and sort of moving the pieces in terms of implementing interventions for children as well as first responders is certainly admirable. So I see people are coming in here, so we're just doing introductions, and feel free to keep your camera on. This is more of an engagement method of a panel, and we've just started. We did share our site, which we're hoping will be a pipeline for individuals with regards to interventions and supports for veterans who are moving into more of an integrative state. And I see that Jared Turner has just logged in as well. Thank you for being here, Jared, as he gets his mic and stuff sorted. And I'm sure we'll have other individuals logging in as we move through this. And just to give him a minute, Jared, we're just talking about introductions, where your work is, your focus point, your background, and how this supports the roundtable and the discussion of solutions to supporting veterans. And we just had Kelly Schwartz talk about his role as a researcher and focus in the Canadian space around veteran integration into civilian life, and his work with first responders and youth alike in that area. And then Dr. RLJ Johnson, who's also on the screen here, and his sharing of being a veteran as well as a mover and shaker in terms of the Florida Coalition Against Homelessness for Veterans. And so, Jared, not to put you on the spot, but would you mind introducing yourself to the viewers?
Yes, good evening. My name is Jared Turner. I am the Director of Warrior Engagement here at the Warrior Alliance, located in Atlanta, Georgia. Essentially, myself, I served in the United States Army for 10 years. I was deployed twice. I was a combat medic. So the Warrior Alliance, what we do is we connect veterans to best-in-class resources throughout the nation based upon their zip code. We have a network of business partners or community partners, if you will. We have MOUs and service level agreements with them. One of the projects that we literally just finished up was a food insecurity project where we received a grant from the Bob Woodruff Foundation, and essentially we were able to issue out gift cards for veterans, essentially $200 gift cards for roughly about 250 veterans. This was the first program that we've done at this level, but this has allowed us to understand the capabilities. We use Salesforce and we use GeoPoint to connect with our veterans. And unlike some other organizations, for us, we focus on all veterans, no matter what era in which they served. This is important to me because subsequently, when I got injured and I was medically retired in 2010, there was no robust network. I literally had to find all of these resources myself. So everybody who has served or anybody that has family members, especially as of recent, you understand that we're facing this tide of suicide, if you will, in the veteran community. One of my teammates, Patrick Brown, who served with the Army Rangers, unfortunately, he separated from service in 2012, and in the last 5 months, he's lost 5 brothers in arms to suicide. Myself, I've lost 11 to suicide. I lost 7 in combat and lost 11 to suicide. I have another Ranger that works with us, and he's lost 16. So when you start thinking about connectivity, yes, we serve the veterans here in the state of Georgia, but because of the Salesforce platform and because of GeoPoint, we're able to connect warriors or veterans to resources in Florida, California, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina. So one of the things that we like to do is just looking at the aspect of removing the barriers from connecting the veterans to the resources. And we would like to be able to expand that to their caregivers as well, because if you want to take care of a veteran, you got to take care of their family first. So.
And I think that's a wonderful introduction, a great segue to our first question on the panel, which I'll ask Kelly to start with, and then RJ, and then Jared. You weren't here in the first panel, but I think you certainly can add to the conversation. And so I'd love for you all to just talk about, from our previous launch, what are some of the challenges, and Jared just talked about suicide for sure, but what are some of the challenges in your own vantage point or perspective that veterans are facing as they do try to transition into civilian life?
Yeah, thanks for that. Certainly, I want to address the importance of family, both as a protective resource, but well, it's not even a but. It's an and how they can serve as a reparative source for veterans as well. So it's to me, it's if any of you knew me, you'd know that I'm a very much a Yuri Bronfenbrenner bioecological model fan. So I see all sorts of social and environmental factors influencing on human development, and of course, family is one of the main ones within that. I think I shared last roundtable how we had just completed and thankfully just got published. In fact, I'm happy to share the link to the peer-reviewed article as well, talking about the importance of family members in supporting veterans who are doing the military to civilian transition, who have a mental disorder, so an operational stress injury that might express itself in the form of a PTSD or a PTSI or depression or anxiety or all of the above. And I think that's how I would characterize one of the largest hurdles is how to address as veterans move into this civilian transition, how do you address and prioritize, mental health, family, vocational change, so vocational retraining and structure, and then add to that. In fact, one of my PhD students is doing an interesting project on institutional betrayal as well. How when members leave the forces. And they experience, just the residue of dealing with that transition in and of itself, but then find that the institution for which they've, given their lives to and have defended isn't there to support them during this next stage. And so we talk about this notion of institutional betrayal and how that, in fact, in some of the interviews we did with some family members, the trauma that military members experienced was actually, in some cases, secondary to the institutional trauma that they experienced following. So yeah, you had the psychological and physical effects of the work and of the role as a military member. But many of them would say that as damaging and debilitating was, again, the feelings of isolation and betrayal that went on afterwards, as they sought support and sought to kind of renew their identities, renew their roles, renew their places in society, and how that was as damaging as, in some ways, as some of the other experiences they had. The last thing I would say, I think, which I talked a little bit about last time, which I think we agreed was the moral injury that happens to veterans. Again, in addition to, as I've said, the growing list of hurdles that veterans have to face and hopefully overcome. It's that also kind of spiritual injury that happens to them in terms of their views of themselves and of humanity in and of itself, and how that is a real barrier as well. So yeah, well, boy, nice joyful start to the discussion here with lots of these heavy areas, but I'll talk later how we might address these or might approach these, but those come to mind from the last roundtable that we had and what I shared in terms of some of the barriers that lots of veterans are facing. So I'll maybe stop there.
Thanks, Kelly. And one of the things I think we pride ourselves in this roundtable approach is to talk about the real. And we'll never get to the truths or get to solutions if we don't have that sort of ability to really unpack the realities of things. So even though it does seem a bit morose, I think it's important that you do give words to the reality of what veterans are facing. So thank you so much.
Right.
RJ, did you want to share from your perspective as a veteran, as well as someone who intervenes in support of veteran transitions?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Doctor. The first thing I want to do is just read to you guys a letter that I got from the wounded warrior as a result of us partnering with them during the Christmas time and several months ago. Okay. And it reads, "Dear Dr. Arla Wayne Johnson, Anthony Valera proudly served 3 tours of duty in the U.S. Marine Corps, the first 2 in Iraq, the 3rd in Afghanistan. It was in Afghanistan that combat changed Anthony's life forever. There was a big flash and a loud bang. Anthony clearly remembers. I crawled out of the vehicle as another Marine came to my rescue and dragged me off. That's when a rocket in the back of the vehicle exploded. 3 of Anthony's brothers were with him in the vehicle. 2 of them, both Marines, were badly injured. The 3rd, a Navy doctor, was killed. Anthony suffered 3rd-degree burns over 70% of his body, including severe burns to his head and face. He endured more than 70 surgeries. and months of challenging and often painful physical therapy. I want to thank you and your team for the recent commitment to supporting heroes like Anthony. His road to recovery has been a difficult one, but with the generosity of supporters like you and your team, he's fought to take back his life. Know that by giving to the Wounded Warrior Project, you're touching the lives of wounded heroes from Florida and across the country. When Anthony rehabilitation got really tough, we were able to be at his side. The life-changing programs that help Anthony would simply not be possible without the support of caring Americans like you. I hope Anthony's story of perseverance inspired you to give again for those who gave you the precious gift of freedom. And so thank you, Anthony, for that letter. Thank you for Wounded Warriors. I want to say that, but for me going into the military, I don't think my life would have been the same. I was born on a cotton farm, a plantation in Jim Crow South in Mississippi, and we had nothing. And the military, I believe, and education were my catalyst out of that poverty. And helping individuals is one of my strongest points that I'm going to drive for the rest of my life. Specifically, the homeless veteran, because like the CEO or the representative from the Warriors Alliance stated, that it's very difficult when we get out of the military after we've been in combat fighting like Anthony and realize that we have nothing. We have nobody to turn to. We have no resources to reach out to us. Now we could go and we could seek it, but we shouldn't have to do that. They should be there. There's over 40,000 veterans that are homeless in the U.S. on any given night, and now I'm segueing into the challenges. And our nation homeless veterans are predominantly male, with roughly 9% being female. The majority living in urban areas, and they suffer from mental illness, alcohol and substance abuse, and co-occurring disorders. So the issues are that there are extreme shortage of affordable housing. There's a extreme deficiency in livable income, and there's an extreme deficiency in access to help. And so what does these do? What challenges do these present? It presents challenges of securing housing. It presents challenges of providing nutritious meals for these combat soldiers and their families. And again, like I indicated, at least 9% of them are women, and these women have kids. And so these kids are not getting food. The basic physical health care is lacking based on what they're seeing. The substance abuse is up, suicide rates are up, health counseling, there's a need for health counseling, and there's a need for job assessment training and placement assistance. And we have to realize that, but until you walk a mile in somebody's shoes, you really don't have a good feel as to what's going on. I have a feel of what's going on because I've been there, and I want to help these individuals pull their life back together.
Thank you, RJ, and thank you for moving into the next question, which is the systemic challenges. And I'm just going to pass it to you, Jared. If you wanted to talk about, and I know you introduced or discuss the implications of suicide and the epidemic that is occurring, perhaps as a result of the pandemic, or just a natural transition as a result of us being more aware, perhaps statistically. But are there other systemic challenges that RJ spoke about or that you wanted to talk about in terms of your work with the Warrior Alliance?
So yeah, first and foremost, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for your service. As a fellow veteran, Dr. Schwartz, thank you so much. As fellow veterans, I think there's something that we have to, and this is to all the veterans, if you will. We all have to understand that combat is nasty. Okay, before anything has transpired, any of that, the most important thing that I want everybody to realize is flying into Iraq, it was 140 degrees. Now, as you're sitting on that plane and it's 140 degrees, we don't have to talk about being tough. We don't have to talk about anything. I like to remind people that when I was deployed, I had to tell my 8-year-old that if dad dies, these are my intentions. Now let's think about that. We are now getting ready to celebrate, if you will, not celebrate, but we're coming upon 20-year anniversary of 9/11. We have put men and women and moms and dads through this so many times. My first deployment was 15 months. Okay, that is criminal now, just to let everybody know. That's criminal now. Okay, but I only was deployed twice because of my second deployment, which was 9 months, I got injured. When you start thinking about the problems that everybody is facing, one of the main problems is, and this is going to be a very controversial statement, is America, do we really care about our veterans? And the reason I say that is this: whether it's classified as PTS right now, or whether we called it shell shock when it was the Vietnam era, it's been here and it's been in front of us for years. Are we really willing to deal with it and address it? It is hard, it is ugly, but the reality of it is this: when you put that uniform on, you are going to make certain sacrifices. And those sacrifices, whether it's staying up all night to get the mission complete, whether it's pushing your body harder with the amount of weight that you're running with. I mean, the average combat load was going to be an extra 100+ pounds that you had on your body. If you look back into 2018, the Department of the Navy stated that you should only have 20 to 30 pounds. Last time I checked, that's a lot more weight than we're carrying. But we also understand this is what happens when you say, hey, I'm going to do whatever needs to be done to defend this great nation, whether it's foreign or whether it's domestic. We have to, as civilians, as veterans, we have to hold our elected officials accountable. And we have to get to the point where we say that the $11 billion entity, being the VA, if you will, that we don't care how big the entity is. We've been going through this problem time and time and time and time again. If the military spends $250,000 to get you through the military, why are they only spending $25,000 to $50,000 when you separate from service? I mean, just think about it. We're still checking the same boxes. I mean, at the time, my 5-year-old could get through the military assessment once you come back home from a deployment. I mean, it's just that easy. So we have to really look at these things and we have to say, okay, if we're facing homelessness, then what is the problem? Is it that we're not able to connect the resources in a timely manner? In Atlanta, we have an issue with single moms not be able to find adequate housing. It is 2021. 20% of the fighting force is comprised of females. You cannot tell me that we don't know this. No, we need to make an adjustment and we need to shift and move now. There are a lot of different problems that are facing the modern day warrior, if you will. But the most important thing is just the lackadaisical attitude that we have when it comes to our governmental officials. We just need to start dealing with the harsh reality. Here in Atlanta, the Super Bowl was here. Many people knew about that. And they said, hey, in Atlanta, there's no more homelessness. No, you actually just bust them and sent them all to the outlying counties. So now guess what? We have homelessness in all the counties. Folks, we can do better. We can really do better. There's educational programs, there's mental health programs, and we need to connect them to our veterans in a minimum 3 months prior to them separating from active service, as well as we need to make it mandatory to follow our veterans when they separate from service. It's not a heavy lift. There's plenty of brothers and sisters that would be welcome to stay in touch, keep tabs on their fellow brothers and sisters, because when you're wearing that uniform, it doesn't matter which branch you're in, you're a family. But when you take that uniform off, you lose your identity. So.
Thank you, Jared. And you know, it's interesting, your conversation touched on Kelly's discussion around abandonment or issues of displacement, et cetera. And it really does, and RJ's conversation around homelessness. And so it's great that you can connect those dots for us. And interesting that you brought a timeline into it around 3 months. And that's certainly something that we will take back to our board, as well as we try to continue to do initiatives such as the fundraising that RJ mentioned earlier, and our supports in terms of interventions. I am going to just go a little bit off script here. Michael, one of the participants and a veteran, would like to just share something as well in the panel. So we'll invite him to do that, and then we'll move forward with the next question in the sort of spirit of community.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. I'm a retired veteran, retired in 2016. Initially worked on Apache helicopters. I was an Army guy. That's when I was deployed to Iraq in 2003, 2004 during initial push. Also, I've been to Bosnia. Then Army was best for me to further my career as an Army recruiter. I did that for a little bit. So, which actually, one thing I want to share with everybody, the intent of, especially for the Army, is actually a reflection of our society. So we got to always take that in consideration when we're actually looking at programs and everything on the outside, because everybody does come from a different background. And that's what's great about our Army. Then I went to civil affairs. Currently, I'm a doctoral candidate. I'm filing up my proposal. And my proposal is actually on military veteran job satisfaction, job motivation as it relates to employee turnover. So I got a ton of information and research. Dr. Kelly, you mentioned, you actually talked about the institutional letdown. And actually, there's a few articles about that topic in Journal of Veteran Studies. They actually got a few of those type of articles in there also, and which is also as much as, because I went through the process, and actually it's mandated by the Department of Defense instruction. It's like 1.3. Veterans are actually supposed to have at least 1 year, up to 24 months to start transitioning out. That's the mandated requirement. Whether it happens or not is a different story. But definitely afterwards is definitely where it's lost. Also, I would like to share, I'm an applied suicide and intervention skills trainer. That's assist. And it's actually, I'm a master's trainer actually. And we actually teach in a lot of active duty military, Army, and Air Force around here where I'm at. And we talk about identifying. And one of the biggest things that Assist through Living Works, and that's actually up in Canada, talks about is suicide it's not one thing, but it's a big thing about it is how they feel about the loss. And that's really the biggest thing is, and that's definitely the add to that conversation is once they leave, that 3, 12, 18, 24-month follow-up. A lot of people do get within the companies that they work for, but then a lot of them don't. It depends on what area. It depends on the organization you're with. Is there a strong military presence amongst buddies and veterans within that workforce? Can that help solidify and help bring veterans together? But if it's not, then that becomes a conflict. And when there's an organizational conflict, that kind of just helps make that stress a little bit more profound with the transition. But I just wanted to share a few things with you guys, because that is a big concern. Unemployment rates actually really low for veterans. It's almost it's maybe 0.2, 0.3 higher than actual civilian counterpart. But the turnover rate of military veterans is anywhere from 50 to 60% within the first year or two of getting that job.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for deepening our conversation. I think everyone with the nodding and again, looking at your perspective around it and your research, we really appreciate this. And it actually is a great movement into our conversation around natural solutions, which you already talked about a little bit. So I'm going to work backwards here just to the solutions conversation, and I'll ask Jared if he would like to talk about some of the solutions that the Warrior Alliance does, and then we'll move to Kelly, and then we'll move to RJ.
It always helps when you unmute yourself, right? So, so there's actually several solutions, and Michael, thank you for your service as well. And he brought up something that is very important. So I'm on a suicide prevention study with the CDC, University of Alabama, and a group called America's Warrior Partnership. One of the things we identified is that the hope scale, if you will. Hope. There are some veterans that, based upon their credit score, if they have a 650 or below credit score, they don't feel like they're ever going to be able to make it again. They don't feel like they're able to achieve their goals. Michael also touched upon lack of connectivity. You have to think about where so many veterans come from. Everything is about the team. Whether it's about your squad, whether it's about the platoon, whether it's about the company, it's all about the team. So if you are returning home or returning to your home a record and you don't have that connectivity, that can also cause a problem. The other thing that we've identified through Salesforce and GeoPoint, if you will, is where is the resource as opposed to where does the veteran reside? That is vitally important. There are some states, again, that have a robust amount of resources. Any of us that have ever been to Texas, I think that all veterans will tell you, we love Texas, but there's some things that the minute you move outside of Texas, they're just not there. There has to be some level of, it just has to be leveled all together, for many of the veterans that live here on the borderline between Georgia and Alabama. So if you are in Alabama and you're service connected at a smaller or lower percentage, well, your kids can go to college for free. That is vitally important. But if you cross the state line and you're in Georgia, not so much, Those things have to happen. And lastly, really two, there has to be a marked change when it comes to addressing our female sisters and understanding the needs that females have when it comes to service. Again, 20% of the fighting force are comprised of women. So guess what? Stop with the traditional nonsense. I'll just say that we have to stop. We just have to. The other thing is, and I think Dr. Schwartz, you really touched upon this: the moral injury. Moral injury. Michael, I had a little bit of fun coming out of the back of a few helicopters, and unfortunately, I was on the wrong side taking a flight to law school. But no, you have to understand there is a moral injury, especially for a lot of veterans that were part of that initial push. But even something that we're finding here at the Warrior Alliance is that Desert Storm, Desert Shield era veteran, they went through a lot. And unfortunately, they were kind of stuck between the hardened Vietnam era and the Panama service members, and then these post 9/11 Iraqi, Afghanistan, service members. And a lot of people did not understand what they went through. But you best believe if you're in a foreign country and you're wearing an American uniform, you're going to go through something when you're in a combat zone. So we have to create ways of acknowledging the pain that people have sustained and doing that in a way that honors that, and to honor that, it's not necessarily going to be fun. I go back to when I was deployed, part of the initial push, when we lost people, when we lost our fellow brothers in arms, you didn't have time to process that. So you're still living off of adrenaline. And when you come home at that time, now granted, this is a different time, but at that time it was, here's some coolers worth of alcohol or beer, and guess what? Don't end up on my police blotter. I mean, that's literally what it was. So we never ever took the time to process the lives that we lost, how they were lost, for all of us that served, or for any of us that are family members of those that served. I think one of the toughest things is when we came back home and there's a parade for us, but we know we didn't come home with everybody. I'm still looking at that spouse. I still remember those kids looking at us and saying, "Where's my dad?" That's pain. Forget the injuries that I sustained or any of us sustained. When you have to look in the eyes of a child and say that your mom or your dad isn't coming home, but you're home, and then we want to give people a parade. So those are just some of the things that I think, at least through the Warrior Alliance, that we've been able, based upon the data that we've seen. So.
Thanks, Jared. And I think it's great that you're using analytics to provide solutions. I think it's a very creative and innovative way to approach it, even though Salesforce actually is made for contacting data. You know what I mean? Like, it's just interesting. That's a total aside. And I think we need to look at it through this lens. And these are probably part of the solutions that you didn't mention, but you're using as a medium or a vehicle. And so Dr. Schwartz or Kelly, what else do you think you can talk about from the Canadian context? And I think we can talk about this in a ubiquitous way, that is Canadian and American contexts are similar because of people that served.
Yeah. It's such a privilege to be with you folks online. I wish we could all be in the room together. And I really just appreciate the transparency and the honesty. For those of you that are not only that have experienced combat-related trauma, and now you've turned that around to try and assist others. It's really heartening. I got to say, like, it's especially for a white guy from Canada who's, my trauma is going to Costco on a Saturday to do a return, and stand in line. That's trauma for me. So that's really heartening to hear you share your hearts. And I think, I have a couple of comments that come certainly from the Canadian context, but also from the clinician side. So as a psychologist, my main role is training the next kind of generation of psychologists who are going to work with families and youth. And as I said, my work is now moving me into not only working with military and veterans, but also into the first responder community. And one of the things that I've, that we're coming up against is, and Jared, you talked about it a little bit about in terms of finding support and resources, is that we often, well, I shouldn't say we often, we sometimes hear from veterans when they're seeking psychological support, it's not finding a psychologist, but it's finding a psychologist who can handle and deal with trauma, who can handle the stories of trauma and deal with that. So we're challenged with the task, and we take this as a challenge, to not just train psychologists in general to work with the human population, but in particular to focus on training psychologists to be able to deal effectively with the effects of trauma, and because we're, in fact, in Canada, one of our problems is we're actually dealing with psychologists who are actually seeking their own psychological support and assistance because they've been traumatized through the work that they're doing with veterans and military members. That's a problem that none of us anticipated, that none of us had thought much about. But it's certainly one that again, we see as, in 5 to 10 years, we hope to be, again, training up a new generation of new clinicians who are not only interested in, but equipped to work with, families and members and veterans who are dealing with the after effects of trauma. The other thing I want to add, and sadly it's not a good news story, but in Canada we're dealing with, and I'd be curious about you as our American counterparts on this. You mentioned about females in the military and female veterans. Sadly, in Canada, the effects of serving in the military are not necessarily combat related for females, but it's the sexualized trauma that happens with females. And again, that adds a whole other level of need for informed intervention, that it's not just about, and again, I say not just about the effects of combat related trauma, but it's about when you return to base and return, that the trauma doesn't stop then. And in fact, the combat doesn't stop. In fact, it's a new battle that's happening for females as they return to base, whether that base is in Kandahar or whether that base is in northern Canada. They're dealing with a different type of battle. And I'm really attuned to that on behalf. Here we are on International Women's Day, that's being celebrated across the globe, and I'm really drawn into the discussion about how do we want and need women in our military. We absolutely need to have that, but we've got to get rid of, and we've got to stamp out the trauma that happens within the military, let alone what happens on the combat field as a result of their military service. And so I think that's a challenge to us, not only as clinicians and psychologists, but even just as advocates, to address that need. So anyways, I leave that with you. And again, I want to thank again those of you who are veterans for sharing your story. It's a privilege to hear that and be a part of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think as we talk about this, and we'll move to RJ, equity seems to be the through line here, whether it be equity of resourcing from state to state, equity in terms of the engagement and the role that women play, equity within the idea of the political service and people that are lobbying or not lobbying for change. And so I don't know, RJ, if you can talk about equity from your lens, but also engaging in the solutions that you're a part of. How do we do this, since you are running a coalition that is trying to move change in the Florida area?
I want to first just mention a systemic challenge that we haven't talked about, and that we as veterans are experiencing, and that is incarceration. There's an estimated 140,000 veterans that are held in United States, state and federal prisons. okay? And out of those, almost all of them are male veterans. And so 99% of the 140,000 veterans that are held in U.S. state and federal prisons are male. And these males are better educated than the rest of the prisoners. In fact, nearly all of the veterans, at least 91% of them, reported at least a high school diploma and or a GED. And so let's talk about what it is that we should be looking at in reference to equity. John Dione coined the phrase, "No man is an island." Okay. And this phrase expresses the ideal that human beings do badly when isolated from others and need to be part of a community in order to thrive. And so men coming out of the military as well as women come out of the military need this type of community, this type of support structure. And so some of the natural solutions, both for men and for women, is to, number one, for me as a CEO and president of a non-for-profit, is to determine the need of my community. And that's comparable to when you are doing your dissertation and you create your purpose statement or you create your research question. You have to determine, and then you do the research and you find out, hey, there's a gap. And this is what I could do, or this is the research that I could bring, or the data that I could bring in order to fill this gap. That's what you got to do. You have to reach out and you got to determine where's that gap. And I determined that that gap was in all of those issues that I cited initially, healthcare, mental health treatment, jobs, and homelessness. And you have to involve others, just like John Dione stated. You cannot do this by yourself, and one organization can't do this by themselves. We need a community. We have to, and I do in my organization, participate in the local homeless coalition, meaning that I pull teams together, be it, in fact, I just met with the Osceola County Sheriff Department, and we're looking at establishing a veterans advisory council so that we can bring in mental health workers to teach the deputies how to identify mental health issues as it relates to veterans. Because we just had an instance in Florida where a veteran who had done 3 tours in Afghanistan was accused of killing 2 police officers. And it still hasn't been determined that he did it, but he's in state penitentiary. He's one of those individuals, 170,000 that's in state penitentiary on death row. We're appealing it, but it's, again, he had a record. They knew he had a record. There was some mental health instability that they saw in some past activities. Had the sheriff department had this type of mental health intervention or mental health counseling on their staff, they probably could have de-escalated the situation. Another issue is to engage elected officials. Now, I've been talking with Congressman Darren Soto, and we have identified things that need to be done here in Osceola County to better deal with our veterans. I've also been talking with individuals that are responsible for building the tiny homes up in Canada. And those individuals are here looking at land to start building tiny homes here in Kissimmee. I've also been looking into the possibility of repurposing vacation villas that have been not used by like Marriott, Hilton, et cetera, to create a specific place for veterans with amenities such as education, job training center, mental health with psychiatrists and RNs on staff. And so we need to get away from the ideal, we as a service need to get away from the ideal that, yeah, we're gonna pay these guys $150,000 right out of high school to come in and join the military. And we're gonna use them for 4 years. But after we finish using them, we're gonna kick them to the street. We can't do that. We can't treat our heroes like that, because if it wasn't for our heroes, the chances of us speaking English today would be probably very small. We would be speaking either German or Japanese. Okay, so our guys and gals are the backbone of not only our democracy and our way of life, but the preservation of our Constitution. And so we need to understand that, and no man is an island.
Thanks, RJ. And I think one of the things that have come up, and I hope that I'm not going to give an order per se, but if you just want to take this question, is do you scale these solutions? So you have individuals like Jared and RJ and Kelly who are trying to do what they can in the space for veterans. But there's still a tremendous inequity across states or across provinces in Canada, and even just a lack of understanding of what is needed, even though I think in Canada and the US, these issues have come to the forefront politically. So what is the solution? Is it to scale? Is it that individuals have to step up as you all did? And this is part of that conversation around how do we realize change and the trueness of it. Jared, did you want to take that?
For us, what we've been able to determine is essentially you need to have resources in different regions, if you will. I was getting ready to share, there is a fund called the Avalon Fund, and that's where Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank have come together. They're the co-founders of Home Depot. So they've come together again. And the purpose of this fund is for service members, veterans, law enforcement, and EMS that are struggling with the residuals, whether it be from combat or whether it just be from their everyday life, in those particular career fields. They can go to different sites throughout the United States. Here in Atlanta, we have what we call the Shepherd Center, and they have what they call the Share Military Initiative. That program is for those of us that have been diagnosed with either traumatic brain injury or polytrauma. I'll put that in the chat as well. I'm a graduate of the Share Military Initiative, but that's one program. You also have a program up in Chicago. You have the Boulder Institute in Colorado. So what we've been able to find is that if you have different resources in different regions, again, going back to how far does a veteran or service member live from the resource? Because if you receive great treatment here at the Shepherd Center, at the Shared Military Initiative, but you live in Iowa, well, where's the continuum of care? There isn't. Now, if you live in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, or Tennessee, well, there's your region and there's where your resources is. Even those veterans that return back to home in Alabama or those that return back to home in Louisiana, sometimes they struggle because it's not the network of robust resources. The other thing that we found is that you have got to be willing to share your data. You cannot, if you really, truly have a passion for this work, you have to have some type of MOU that will allow your organization to share the data. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from the data. sometimes you need another set of eyes taking a look at the data and ascertaining that or looking for different things. So that's just at least what we've been able to do.
And it's so interesting. So my dissertation was on data analytics, and it's just so funny that data just permeates through all sections of society, also business, etc. And the way Warrior Alliance seems to me is running their approach is very much like a corporate sort of arm that is leveraging, structures, mediums, technological platforms to help with social innovation, right, or social change. And so I think that's so wonderful that you talk about that, and that's that it's a bigger conversation, not part of our roundtable, but around good information in, good information out. What are people doing in order to bring that together? And aside, but I just wanted to comment on that because it really resonated. Thanks, Jared. Kelly, RJ, did you want to talk about the conversation around scaling, or how do we realize this change?
Yeah, it's a big question. Jared's talk about how they're using data to in fact in the medical world they're talking about precision medicine. I don't know if that's a term that's used in the US or not, but in Canada that's a new buzzword called precision medicine. So it's basically saying it's good enough, or it's necessary to have access to basic medical health care, but sometimes it needs to be more than that. It needs to be much more directed and fine-tuned towards what a person needs. And I'm reminded about some of the work that that we're trying to do too is, and I don't even know how this aligns necessarily, but I keep ignoring this thing on my wrist that keeps buzzing. It's a stress monitor. It tells me to take a breath or take a walk or, exercise, or how many flights of stairs I've walked. But we're actually using wearables in our study with first responders to see how this can actually help to regulate, give immediate feedback to family members and in this case to first responders, but it could easily be translated into military and veterans too, just about how we actually give them the tools that they need to actually, recognize their own kind of, ebbs and flows of how their body is responding to stress and how their bodies are responding to. So it's an easy, relatively easy and cheap way to actually be kind of a, the friend that tells you when you're, when your emotions are getting a little hot, or when you need to take a walk, when you need to to relax, and using technology to actually leverage that for, for health and well-being. I would add to this that as much as we all love to complain about COVID, and nobody likes to complain about COVID more than I do, it's actually forced us to rethink how we deliver some of our mental health care and systems of delivery. Like, it's actually forced us to, in fact, the program I'm working on for a psychoeducation and support program for first responder families, we were always thinking about delivering this like in a room with 10 or 12 individuals sitting around for 2 hours a week. Now COVID has actually forced us to think about, okay, what if we thought about how we would deliver this in a culturally and relationally meaningful way, that allows this sort of process to happen like we're doing right now, but that also just, and again, what's encouraging to us is it allows us to think about individuals who are not within driving distance of a major, metropolitan city or a major center to receive services in ways that's timely, effective, but still relationally meaningful. I mean, that's the thing that we all think we've missed and are, with the pandemic, is we've lost that kind of sense of human connection and human contact. I'm sure we're going to, as soon as the doors open wider and wider each week and month ahead, we're going to re-embrace how that is. But at the same time, it's forcing us at the therapeutic level to think about, okay, how can we leverage what we've learned over this year in social distancing through technology to be able to deliver and receive, psychological services to individuals in ways that we maybe would have thought would be available 5 years from now, but could be actually available much sooner than that. So I'm hopeful about that. I look at this as an opportunity rather than a barrier, and it's forcing us in the therapeutic side of things to think about ways that we can tweak technology, everything from wearables and Zoom meetings to really kind of inspire hope and change in people as a result of what we've had to bear the brunt of the last year. So I just throw that out there as a thought or a comment too.
I think that's wonderful. And I think as all of us are trying to um, provide interventions in this space, any ideas that we're sharing can certainly inform other organizational practices as well. And I think wearables is a great way to have that real time intervention and see where it goes in terms of mindfulness, self compassion, you name it, so on and so forth, at that tier 1, tier 2 wellness level that we introduced at the beginning of the session. RJ, I'll go to you, and then Michael would like to just share something around his research as well as his work.
Okay. There are a couple things that I'm doing here in Osceola County. I mentioned a couple of them to you guys, but these roundtables have given me a lot of data and a lot of room to build strategies around. So I think I'm going to host a virtual veterans roundtable, again, to better understand the issues that veterans are facing here in Osceola County and need. We have 17,000 veterans here in Osceola County, and not all of them, of course, are homeless. We have probably 120 that are homeless. In the state, we have 1,800. One is too many. So we're going to be putting together a virtual veterans roundtable to get our veterans talking about what they need. Additionally, and I've talked about this just very briefly, we're going to partner with the county sheriff's office to help locate the homeless camps. And we are partnering with the congressmen and congresswomen and the commissioners, VSO and the courts, to create a veteran stand down. And what that is essentially is when there's a topic of importance that coming down the pipe, the commander says, okay, no duty today. We're going to meet and we're going to talk about this and we're going to do some things. We're going to do something like that. We're going to look into, again, repurposing abandoned results to turn them into shelters and partner with the VA and mental health agencies so that we can cover the area on the healthcare side. We realize that we're not all things to all individuals, and there are individuals that are out there that are better at what they do than we are, and we want to tap into that. We're going to partner with employers and universities to provide the job and the education training. We've already talked with the city, and they've given us a grant to use the Community Civic Center, and we're going to have a job fair and a health fair in there. We're partnering with food firms such as the restaurants, the Salvation Army, et cetera, so that we can start food drives for the homeless and for the veterans. And we are collaborating with the hospitals to conduct COVID testing and COVID vaccines for the veterans, specifically those that are in the camps. And so those are some of the things that we want to do to kind of take care of our guys and gals that have given us a lot of life.
Thanks, RJ. And it's great to hear what your work is doing in the Florida area and what your goals are in terms of the stand down, which we will be highlighting in our board work and hopefully that stand down starts to proliferate in terms of people taking on the same adage and taking a pause for these important challenges or issues. Michael, did you want to share? And we're going to round the corner as to the close of this roundtable soon. We did start a bit later, but just to honor time, we're still on the solutions conversation and how to realize that. Michael?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, knowledge is power. And also one of the biggest things I got from assist training, because it's even brought in through that training, is we can't expect medical professionals to take care of all the veterans that need to be taken. We got to make sure that we have the resources ourselves. A couple examples, I volunteered and I ran into a couple veterans or spouses of veterans actually, and just started asking, talking to them, and helped. One was a teacher, say, hey, there's a teacher program here in Texas that can pay for your recertification, don't have to retake it. And so just little things like that really means a lot. Also, I'm with the Association of the United States Army here in Texas, in Central Region, Alamo. And one of the concerns is the Hazelwood Act. Hazelwood Act allows service members who enlist in the military here in Texas, when they get out, provide, basically allow them to go to college, or their children and spouses. And they're actually looking at taking that away or revamping it. And one of the things that I thought about is, what's the benefit? So that's always been my mindset, is how can I prove a benefit to either, I've helped veterans with their resumes, I helped them with their jobs. I do a lot of volunteer work with veterans. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. There's a lot of veterans, a lot of veteran organizations here. But believe it or not, the majority of veterans, and I would even assume, say most of their spouses also, or even children, go into STEM occupations. Actually, there's a study by Werman, Steidel, and Harsey, and Absalon, 2020 study that actually states that military service is more aligned with STEM occupations. And so as politicians, or as our governmental leaders looking for development and looking to really push STEM, that's one way we can help get the benefits, because it's more towards STEM, because they're going to show higher propensity of being successful in STEM occupations. So as much as it is, yes, we want to help them, but there's a benefit to helping them. And I think as long as we continue to show that benefit, financial benefit, also a business benefit also, I think it's all going to help everybody, and then just, of course, spreading the word.
And such a good point, Michael, that idea that the fiscal implications, so we live in a society or the world in which economic planning as well as results is what guides the day in terms of policy and implementation. And so you're right. I think this, coupled with Jared's conversation and Kelly's conversation around data and the ability to prove that things are working, can certainly help with lobbying and shifting policy, albeit slow, because as we know, governments are balkanized institutions, but slow is still change. And we need to do that as individuals as well as a collective. And I think that's so wonderful that we've been real in this conversation. We're going to continue this conversation into June and July, where we have our next official roundtable. We're mixing them up between Fulbright readiness and veterans intervention and conversations with the work we're doing with the initiative. But I would like to open it up to questions on the chat or questions from our participants, if there are any. We are moving past time here, so we can also hold some of these to the next roundtable, which I'm hoping everyone will participate in. And then also closing remarks from our panel members around the conversation today, just to recap. What are some of the systemic barriers that are facing veterans? In the face of that, how can we solve some of these in a real way? And what are we doing in our own wheelhouse, if we will, to move change? And that's what we've been talking about today. So questions or closing remarks? and anyone can take it.
Well, I think in closing remarks, just for myself, one, I'm just honored to be a part of this discussion. Definitely glad to hear that the discussion is moving into the wearable arena, because we do believe that there's an opportunity there. I think it's very important for us to understand that we have to keep the pressure upon our elected officials when it comes to causes related to any and everything dealing with our veterans. We also have to make sure that we keep the pressure on getting resources to our veteran population in a timely manner. Understand, yes, to deal with the DoD entities or to deal with politicians, it does take time, but we still should be holding them accountable. Many politicians were elected and put in office stating that they were going to do certain things. Well, they need to be working in their terms. The other thing is, I think it's important as often as we can make sure that we're engaging with those who are willing to share the demographic information when it comes to their data. This is bigger than the Warrior Alliance. It's bigger than the Wounded Warrior Project. It's bigger than all of us. We have got to stem the tide in some of the things that are taking place. I used to work for the Veterans Benefits Administration. I never had any issues in my service. I'm embarrassed to say it, but it wasn't until I started working with the Veterans Benefits Administration and became a national service officer that I started to see military sexual trauma claims. And I realized there's another harsh reality of the military. And not everybody had, the wonderful time that I had. So we have to be more understanding to those who we just may not be able to understand. We have to make sure that we create paths and opportunities for all of those who have served to come and be heard. I think that is vitally important for everybody. If you served, you deserve an opportunity to be heard. And I think lastly, just want to say thank you to everybody again. This is a great discussion. I've learned a lot, so I'll be reaching out to a few of you, if not everybody, on LinkedIn. So, when you see that chat going, just know that, hey, Jared's over here in Atlanta thinking of how can we combine forces? How can we get more people engaged? We are stronger together, plain and simple.
Thank you, Jared. Very thoughtful. Kelly, any closing remarks? RJ, anything?
Yeah, it has been a pleasure for me to serve with this team. And I'm very, very excited about where we're going to go with this in the future. The new Secretary of Defense, who is a African American, has, in the U.S., has very, very definitive and concrete ideas as to what he wants to do with the service. And I think that we as community leaders need to start feeding him the information that he's not going to be privy to, because people want to play politics with him, and the information is not stuff. It's like Vietnam, like the numbers in Vietnam. How many did we kill, or you win the war by attrition, and so they're inflating the figures so that they can make us seem as though we did more than we really did. I think we, the individuals that are on the ground, need to take the position that we're going to feed the Secretary of Defense important information, and we need the Secretary of Defense and the President and the Vice President to create programs that's going to target helping veterans in the future. I was at the VA last week, and I mentioned to one of the health service individuals, my organization. In fact, I had my my mask on, and it had my organization logo on it. And he asked me about it, and I told him, and he said, "You know something? I need to get your number." He said, "Because there's a young lady that we saw just yesterday who was upset over the fact that she's been denied her claim the third time, and she has no other choice but to go and join a camp that lives in the woods." And so this is reality, and she has a child. And so I gave him my number, and and the young lady contacted me, and I steered her toward a homeless shelter. But my point is that if she was going to go to the woods to live, then there has to be a community in the woods that she know of. And other people have become disenchanted with this big VA piece. And we need to push that to the Secretary of Defense. We need to push that to the Secretary of the Veterans Administration, or not the Secretary, but the SES, or the presidential appointee that's over the VA, and say, hey, look, we're leaving these people behind, and we made a commitment: never leave a fallen soldier behind, or military person. And we've abandoned that, and we can't afford that in this country or in Canada. Again, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, RJ. Kelly, did you want to close with anything around your research or work in terms of the psychology space?
Yeah, the last word I want to have is to kind of put psychology in its place, and that's to say, there's no better therapy or treatment. I'm convinced for veterans than giving them an opportunity to give back to their communities. That's where the true healing happens. And again, we've seen that. In testimony with people that are just in this small roundtable that are actually doing, coming from places of pain, coming from places of woundedness, but then are using that to give back, and that's like I said, that's really heartening to me, because I'm convinced that although mental health professionals can be part of the solution, the real solution is giving people a place to give back and to serve again in a different way and in a different form. And again, it's been really encouraging to be part of this group today. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Kelly. I wanted to just note, I did put in the chat Respect Canada, which Kelly introduced me to as the Canadian representative on this initiative, is also doing quite a lot of work in data and trying to centralize organizations and their processes and approaches to support veterans across Canada, so across our provinces, which are your states. And so there are organizations, I think, that we can optimize, as Jared talked about, wanting to learn more. And I think we do need to keep this conversation going with the panelists, and Michael as our impromptu panelist as well. Thank you for that. And have us sort of keep visioning out and realizing the change. And so I think we really do need to move this into another forum. And as Jared said, we can connect on LinkedIn, but perhaps it's a bigger conversation around having a group chat or something around what we're doing, just sharing, not having necessarily deadlines or any sort of deliverables per se, but learning from each other and seeing what's being done across borders. And thank you, Michael, for also talking about your work and what you can share. And I invite you as well to join us in this collaboration. And we will revisit this in June and July as we, and Jared, you missed this part, but we are launching a site as a pipeline, which you will be a part of, because I think one of our board members had talked about that, but we'll continue that conversation a bit deeper. But our hope is not that it's just another website, but that it brings together the resources, the organizations, and the partnerships as we're listed tonight that can help people. And I think we'll be only as good as the way we market and PR the approach. And then everyone, hopefully in their work, whether it be what RJ is doing, what Kelly's doing, what Jared's doing and Michael are doing, can support the linkages that are maybe not seen in the VA per se. And I'll just hold for one more comment from Jared as we close, and then we will close the roundtable for this evening.
Sound pretty hilarious to everybody on the panel, except for those who have served. But there's a group of us called the Shepherd's Men, and we have run from New York to Atlanta, Boston to Atlanta, Philadelphia to Atlanta. So as you get it, we run. In May, we are going to run from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. We're going to run around the Capitol for 22 hours, and then we're going to run to Atlanta. It's probably going to take us about 7 days, but all of the members of the team are either active duty service members or they are veterans. The reason that I'm saying this is because it's going to take place in May. When we ran from the Flight 93 Memorial to Atlanta, we were seen by over 120 million folks. So if there's any ideas, any messaging that you would like for us to push out on our social media platform, we do our run to raise proceeds and awareness for the Share Military Initiative, again, which is located at the Shepherd Center here in Atlanta. But this is bigger. This is reality. This is for all veterans. This is for all service members. So if there's any topics, it's a pretty big bullhorn that we have when we're running. So if there's any topics, anything that you would like us to share, please use my email address or find me on LinkedIn. The more people we get involved, not with the run, but just talking about what veterans go through. We run with our ballistic vest to represent the weight, the physical weight that men and women carry. Sometimes those who run with us, we will give them the vest so they can carry that themselves. We also do it as a way to honor those. So Kelly, when you talk about the moral loss, we do that as a way to honor those men and women that we've also lost in combat. So again, please reach out to me. This is my last run. You see these gray hairs? I'm getting old. I can't keep running. Okay.
Thanks, Jared. That's wonderful. And we will share that out on the Fulbright website as well for all of our members. And certainly perhaps we can put that on the website. So thank you for sharing. Thank you all for participating in a real deep conversation around the work we're doing to support veterans. And we will share this video on YouTube as well as we did last time. And hopefully we can continue to move the needle in terms of supports for veterans that are moving into civilian life. So have a wonderful evening, and thank you for those that were watching. And it was just amazing to bring together these people from different walks of life and sharing their perspectives. Tom, did you want to say anything?
No, I was just here to acknowledge and thank everyone for being here. It's wow, quite humbling to hear all these heartfelt stories and great works that are being done moving forward in so many different places. So thank you all for your service and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care.
Be well, stay safe, everyone.